Eitan Shalom back with the breakfast cookie, and I'm talking about the olive oil that I use. So what I also like about my Whole Foods anyway is that I can buy single origin olive oils that have different properties. And so this olive oil, which comes from Sevilla in Spain, called Seville in English, Sevilla, this olive oil is made with Goji Blanca variety olives exclusively. It's 100% Goji Blanca variety olives. And then why I like to use that is because this is an olive oil that tolerates high temperature. So you can use it for pan sautéing and even baking, whereas many of the other olive oils you just want to use raw, and they're what you would want to use if you were making hummus or a salad with olive oil. This olive oil is slightly sweet. It has a very smooth finish and a subtle aftertaste of almonds. So it really suits this dish quite well. And these cookies. And then what else? You could, but I'm not going to, add a little bit of almond extract if you wanted. I'm not going to do that today. And you also could put a little bit of vanilla extract. I have learned that when I use almond extract, I will put, even if I don't want a vanilla flavor, I'll put just a tiny bit of vanilla extract and it softens the flavor of the almond extract. But I'm not going to do that. If I were using ground almonds, I might put a little almond extract, but then I don't generally use almond extract with the Vietnamese cinnamon. That would be more like of an almond cookie, and then I have a little bit of cinnamon. So let's just talk about that another time. Thank you. Moisture. There's a lot of choices here. Of course, you could add, once we mix this up, you'll see, you could add a little bit of any kind of milk. I sometimes use goat milk, which is the kind of milk that I drink. But you could use coconut milk, soy milk, any kind of nut milk. And what I often like to use is a little bit of kefir, a little bit of liquid yogurt. Why do I like to use that? Because it gives a little bit of a sour flavor, and the sour flavor kind of enhances the sweet flavor in something like this where the walnuts are quite slightly bitter. And the pumpkin seeds are also rather a bit bitter. So those are bitter and bland. And so then you have bitter, bland, sweet, and then you introduce a little bit of sour, and it enhances the flavor of the cookie in the same way that some people will add lemon to a cookie, or you'll even notice sometimes in a store-bought cookie there's citric acid. I'm going to decorate my cookies with some sliced banana, and also with Turkish dried apricot. I love the Turkish dried apricots. They're unsulfured. I've seen them at Trader Joe's. I get them at the food co-op. And this is rather a drier looking one. Sometimes they're really dark and very plump and juicy, but that's fine because this is going to cook and then it's going to get soft. Dried apricots, Turkish dried apricots, are really fantastic baked in with things. Again, like raisins, I also use them in cooking. I'm very fond of the sweet and sour flavor in some of my cooking, which is an influence from the Middle East, and also characteristic actually of my roots, which is Eastern European Jewish cooking. We're very fond of sweet and sour. And so I also have diced up a few of the apricots, which just to show you, I'm not going to actually use these in my cookies today, but you can, that's a bad picture. You could also dice them up, and you could dice them up smaller than that. Use them the way that I'm using the goji and the raisins. Okay, so now, and then the other thing is, how am I going to bake these? Quite simply, in my toaster oven. In my toaster oven on some parchment paper. If you don't know about parchment paper, parchment paper is fabulous. You can get it at any supermarket, and parchment paper saves you oiling the pan, and it also keeps your pan clean so you don't have to wash it as much. And you can reuse it. I reuse parchment paper probably 5 or 6 times for these cookies or whatever. If I'm baking something dry, you know, you can also use it to bake fish. And so I'm going to bake them on parchment paper, and I am going to bake them in the toaster oven for, I generally start, depends on the cookie. I generally start with 20 minutes at 400 degrees, and then I check them at 20 minutes, and sometimes they need another 10 minutes. It really just depends on the mix of the day. One more thing. If you wanted, instead of using a milk product, you know, any kind of nut milk for or whatever for your liquid, another thing you can do, and if I do this, then I don't use any raw sugar, is you can use some fruit juice. This is apricot juice. Apricot juice is excellent in these kind of cookies because of the texture and flavor of apricot. Another option, apple juice, pear juice, cherry juice, pomegranate juice, just depending on the flavor that you want. I don't usually use orange juice. I use orange juice if I'm making an orange flavored cookie, which I don't generally do, but I could. But I definitely have used orange juice in making muffins, which, yeah, okay. So now, the only thing I have not done is ground up the nuts, which we're going to do now. Sorry for the, I need both my hands. Okay, so this is 3/4 of a cup. Is that right? 3/4 of a cup of walnuts. Now, I admit that this grinder doesn't grind the walnuts perfectly, and I fully intend on obtaining a better grinder. My Indian friends all use something that they call a mixie in India, and it's a much bigger, stronger, more powerful grinder. I mean, you can probably grind walnuts up in a mini food processor. I have one over there, but I'm just not going to worry about that right now. So, how I'm going to do this, I'm going to put the camera down, is I shake this thing a little bit. Whoops. And then I grind it a little bit, and then I'm going to have to, sorry, just take a knife and kind of turn the contents a bit. Okay, pardon me for coughing. Okay, so now the walnuts, yeah, this could definitely be an easier process with a mixie. And I've seen them, you can buy them online again. Well, you can buy everything online now, right? Here we go. Okay, they're grinding, and I'm going to turn it one more time with a knife. I think I'm going to turn this off, and I'll come back to you when the walnuts are